rely on marketing more than ever to connect with audiences. One podcast aims to make sense of it all. This is Movies and Marketing.
Next Saturday night, we're sending you back to the future.
Go ahead, make my day.
How about news, you crazy Dutch bastard?
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Take a look around, you're at the threshold of hell!
But we might as well have a good time.
I am an FBI agent!
Life's not fair, is it, my little friend? While some are born to feast, others spend their lives in the dark. Begging for scraps.
So on today's episode, we're looking back on the summer box office draft.
And Patrick, the summer's taught me anything. It's that life's not fair, especially for those of us who live our lives in the dark. We watch those other people out there feasting on all the fruits and the wonderful box office money falling down on them, the billions of dollars, while others of us are grabbing for scraps from Child's Play and Angry Birds like scavengers. It's a terrible life. Terrible, terrible life. Here in the dark. The darkness. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Would you?
No, I don't have any of that sadness. It's been a good year. It's been a good summer for me.
Spoiler alert, things fell in your favor. You know, to give a little background, let's go back to 2016. So since 2016, we've competed to see who could more accurately predict the U.S. summer box office results. I think going into this year, I was up 2-1. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we are tied after you clobbered me this summer. But this was our first year doing things a little different. This summer, we did a draft where we actually drafted teams. So it wasn't just trying to pick what movies were going to do better, which we had done in the past. This year, we drafted a team, so we each couldn't pick the same movies. Did you like this new format better? What'd you think about it?
I think this is a great format for us moving forward, just because it makes things more interesting across the board, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a lot more interesting when we're not having the same movies on our list. So I thought it was a lot more fun to watch it play out.
So why don't you tell everybody the huge mistake we made when we recorded that episode.
We did mistakenly leave out one movie that did open Memorial Day weekend, thinking that it was with the other movies that came out in May. That movie was Aladdin, which turned out to be one of the top 4 movies of the summer. It should have been included in our summer movie draft.
Yeah.
Because we thought it opened before that weekend, we didn't include it. That's like $350 million this movie ended up making domestically that we left out of the competition that potentially could have changed things a little bit. An interesting alternate universe where that's in there, what things would have looked like with Aladdin in the game. We don't know, but kind of a big mistake on our part.
Yeah, it was a big mistake, but you know what? We moved on.
What is what is, man. So Patrick, let's remind the listeners here. Why don't you tell people what movies were on your squad and the order in which you picked them?
Yeah, so we each picked 7 movies. Mine, 1 to 7, are as follows. Spider-Man, Far From Home, The Lion King, number 2. 3, The Secret Life of Pets 2. Number 4, Dark Phoenix. Number 5, Rocket Man. Number 6, Shaft with Samuel L. Jackson. And number 7, Dora and the Lost City of Gold.
Here's what my team looked like. Here are my 7 picks. In the first spot, I picked Toy Story 4. Second, I picked Hobbs and Shaw. Then I picked Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Fourth, I picked Men in Black International. Fifth, I picked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Sixth, I picked Child's Play. And in my final spot, I picked the Angry Birds movie 2. That was the 7 we each picked on our teams. It was kind of hard at the time, especially when you got towards the end of those lists, figuring out what to pick. You're just taking some shots. Mm-hmm. But here's what ended up playing out as the top 14 movies of the summer. Movies that came out from Memorial Day through Labor Day, mistakenly excluding Aladdin. Number 1 movie of the summer, The Lion King, with $523.5 million. This was the number 3 pick by you.
Yeah.
So Spider-Man and Toy Story 4 went before this. Neither of us thought this was going to be the number 1 movie of the summer. Are you surprised that it was?
Not completely surprised.
Lion King ended up doing almost $100 million more than Toy Story 4, which I'm surprised about. I thought there was more love for the Toy Story 4, but you get that high number, it shows people were going back to it. This is the number 1 movie of the summer, so obviously it got a lot of repeat business. So then Toy Story 4 came in the number 2 spot with $430 million. Number 3 was Spider-Man Far From Home at $386 million. Now, were you surprised that wasn't a little higher?
A little. I think I expected to do a little bit more, but I was going to be really surprised if it didn't get above 300.
Yeah, I probably thought it would be slightly higher, but it obviously did good. It was a good movie.
Yeah.
Coming out of the draft, this was why I was pretty sure I was in trouble, because I knew you had a good chance of your 2 movies just crushing my whole list by themselves almost. And they just dominated because we didn't even have another. Once you don't have a 4th movie in there to kind of even it out, which Aladdin could have been.
Would you have picked
it?
Yeah.
If Aladdin was on this list, I don't know if I would have picked it. I did not think that movie was going to do well. I probably would have put it with those movies that are in this next tier.
You loved Hobbs and Shaw though, man, and I think you would have probably kept it as your 4th.
I think I would have assumed Aladdin was in that category, like Hobbs and Shaw, Secret Life of Pets 2. I would have guessed that Aladdin would have made over 200 million. I wouldn't have guessed it would have made over 300 million.
Yeah.
Not having seen the movie, judging by previews and stuff, I thought it looked bad.
Yeah. You had a lot of hate for the Aladdin movie, I remember.
Yeah. So again, maybe that wouldn't have skewed things. Maybe it would have just made your list better, because maybe you would have grabbed it. So then we got number 4 was Hobbs and Shaw at 159. But what a drop off, right? You go from Spider-Man at number 3 at 386 to number 4, Hobbs and Shaw, 159. That's over $200 million drop off. So this is what I consider your second level. Then number 5, Secret Life of Pets 2. And this is pretty funny. This is what I debated in the draft. You made me feel real bad, I can't believe you picked Hobbs and Shaw over Secret Life of Pets 2. And then I started to think about it. I'm like, oh man, Secret Life of Pets 1 made a lot of money. That probably was a big mistake. That probably cost me $100 million. I can't believe I did that. I just left the draft thinking that was going to be my biggest regret. Turns out it did not make any difference. I mean, they're almost dead even. It almost mattered not at all. I can't believe Secret Life of Pets 2 did not do better. That was pretty surprise. That was one of the bigger surprises, I think.
The one thing that created that equilibrium for those two, they marketed the crap out of Hobbs and Shaw. But The Secret Life of Pets 2, I feel didn't have nearly the saturation that Hobbs and Shaw had. And I think that played a huge part. I think if Secret Life of Pets 2 had marketed better, it might have done better.
I remember seeing, on kids stuff, I remember seeing a lot early in the summer because it was one of the earliest kids releases.
Yeah, because they had marketed it so early that I felt like Secret Life of Pets 2 was already out of the movie theater.
They might have just been relying also on the name and recognition and being the first kids movie out of the gate. I mean, Hobbs and Shaw definitely, they had a lot of market. I mean, the trailers for that were playing. I felt like it was nonstop. Whenever I went to see a movie, it was Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
I obviously expected more from it. I thought it would cross the 200 mark, at least. So I was expecting a little more muscle from The Rock on that one. But anyway, back to the list. So then at number 6, somewhat surprisingly, we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood at $131.1 million. Pretty good for an adult Tarantino movie. Number 7 on the list, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, $110.9 88.5. Early in the summer was a pretty fun time, especially for this challenge, because movies that were big movies that I thought were like no-brainer 200 million movies, just weekend after weekend, we were commenting on the fact that they were just all coming out and bombing left and right. It would be like disappointing opening, disappointing opening, disappointing opening. And Godzilla was definitely one of those movies.
Yeah, Godzilla, it's a hit or miss. I feel like the general population, they like the Godzilla movies, but it's not something that's a huge draw. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm not totally surprised by those. And it's also the timing, right? We always talk about that. Parts of the summer are dead zones. Movies that you think are going to do pretty decent, bomb.
Yeah. I feel like we've seen Godzilla come out time and time again, and they keep trying to make it work, and it's just not happening. It's time to let it go.
Well, in 2014, when they came out the last Godzilla, it did 200 million.
But afterwards, who remembers much about that movie? It was all kind of like left with a shrug. Everybody was like, okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the reason why this one didn't do as well.
It probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next on the list, we have Rocket Man, which did 96.3, which is pretty good for that type of movie. I think did pretty well, especially in the summertime.
Rocket Man.
And it gets that. Our next tier, as I would call it, so number 9 on the list, Men in Black International, 79.7. Doesn't even cross the 100 million mark. I'll call that a bomb. Number 10, Yesterday, 73.1, kind of a sleeper hit, like a rom-com, did pretty well for that type of movie in the summertime again. Number 11, Annabelle Comes Home, 72.7 million. Number 12, Dark Phoenix, 65.8 million. Really low for an X-Men movie.
Yeah.
Just a total bomb. Not much else to say about that. Number 13, Good Boys, a movie I know nothing about, but another sleeper hit with 59.1 million. And another overperforming movie at number 14, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark at 58.9 million. Movie not even on the radar at the beginning of the summer. Those last two both kind of came out toward the end of the summer, and it's hard to anticipate movies like that in May.
Yeah, there's always going to be some of those. I feel like there's always some of those anyway every year. You're always trying to anticipate what those might be, but yeah. Obviously, then Dora and the Lost City of Gold did 51.2 million. I thought that was pretty respectable for a movie that I didn't know what it was going to do. And if you listen to the last episode with the challenge and us picking the draft, we had a really hard time with picking those last few in our list.
Spots.
Yeah, they were hard.
Spots are tough.
Dora was, I thought, pretty respectable.
Yeah, for your last spot, that's pretty good. My last spot, not as good. The Angry Birds Movie 2, 35.7 million. Was hoping for something more Dora-like from that. Not terrible. Again, both our 7 picks did better than our 6 picks. Mine was Child's Play, 29.2 million. Really debating between Child's Play and Annabelle. Should have definitely gone with Annabelle. Child's Play just didn't find an audience. Was hoping it would. That was the one I put my money on, and mistake.
Yeah. Well, you needed that horror movie in there, and didn't help out this time around, unfortunately.
No, it was not the summer where people were going for the retread.
Yeah, except for Lion King and Spider-Man and Toy Story 4. And Aladdin.
Again, you needed a slightly new angle.
Yeah. Not a complete retread. Not the exact same tires.
Yeah. Another retread that didn't quite do it. Shaft, your number 6 pick. 21.3 million. I don't even remember that actually coming out into theaters.
Yeah. Here's the thing. They should have paired Shaft and Starsky and Hutch, or Shaft and Magnum PI. You know, a partner type situation. And I think that movie would have sold. Or Shaft and Charlie's Angels.
Something like that, you know.
I would go see that movie right now if it was Shaft and the Angels.
Obviously, what this summer has taught us, it needs just that new angle.
Yeah.
I mean, there was already like the Shaft remake that came out in the 2000s with Samuel L. Jackson. So I think there was probably a lot of confusion there.
For sure.
Well, Patrick, let's get to our team totals here. My team totaled 976.2 million with an M. How did your team do? Pretty bad, right?
Yeah, mine 1.302 billion. We went out at extra decimal points because mine was so much bigger.
In the billions.
Huge numbers. A billion. It's billion with a B. Yours is million with an M.
I know, it couldn't even cross the 1 billion mark. My studio is a failure, going out of business.
Yeah, well, you'll make better decisions next summer.
Yeah.
I have tanked a little bit in the past, so it's fun to be on top at least one summer. So yeah, I get the trophy. We are in the midst of producing a physical trophy that we will be able to pass to the winner each year.
There's rumors it's going to be made of Valerian steel. Can you verify that?
I think so, because we really tried to get adamantium, like Wolverine and his claws, but we will have that trophy.
And of course, you also get the first pick in next year's draft, which, if the season plays out anything like this year, is crucial.
Yeah, I like having the first draft pick for sure. But who knows? I feel like this new format, like I said before, it's going to be really exciting moving forward because you could really mess up and you don't have an advantage if you don't make the right picks at the beginning.
It's true, and there's not always like this where there's an uneven number of big hit movies. Sometimes there's 2, sometimes there's 5. It all depends how the summer shakes out.
So it'll be exciting to see next year's, and that will be a tiebreaker as well.
Tiebreaker year in 2020. And we'll have movies like Top Gun.
Yeah, Maverick. That's going to be a good one. That might be number 1 on my list. I don't know. We'll have to see what else is coming out.
I'm excited. Can't wait. Can't wait till next summer, as this summer ends.
Yeah. So looking back on your draft picks, what do you think was your smartest move?
Well, I didn't have a lot of them, but I had one. My best move was probably taking Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for pick number 10, making $130 million, which is pretty good value for what was my, I guess, 5th pick. So towards the end of the draft, ends up doing better than Godzilla, Men in Black, movies I picked earlier, Dark Phoenix, something you picked earlier. So it seemed iffy at the beginning of the summer how this was going to do. You weren't sure, was this going to be like a 65 million movie, or was it going to play like something more like Inglourious Bastards or Django, which are Tarantino movies that did pretty well. It did, ended up finding an audience, doing pretty well. I think adults were looking for a movie to see this summer. Also had some great marketing behind it, so was happy to see that movie do well. Paid off for me. Yeah,
and I think we both agreed that it was an interesting looking movie, when we were picking. We both felt the potential there for this movie, so I was glad to see that it did well. So, yeah, I think my smartest move was probably not taking Toy Story 4 as my first pick. Allowed me to grab The Lion King as my number 2. Obviously, Lion King took that top spot as what I like to call the lion's tail end of the summer.
Your smartest move was probably taking Rocket Man.
You think?
Yeah, we get Rocket Man at, what'd you get Rocket Man at number 6? And then that does 96. That's a pretty good move. Because either way, you take Lion King, you take Toy Story 4. I mean, at that point, paired with Spider-Man, you got big money from your first 2 picks. You win either way.
Yeah, I guess my smartest move was just playing the game.
Your smartest move was walking in the room, right? Showing up that day.
Had I not shown up, it would have been a disaster. So what would your biggest regret then be? If that was your smartest move? I know you probably have a laundry list of regrets.
So many regrets. It's hard to regret too much. There really wasn't much of a chance. I regret the later mistakes because those are the ones I think I had more control of. But like I said, no matter what, whether you pick Toy Story 4, whether you pick The Lion King, you still got that top-heavy money there that I just can't compete with, even if I would have made better choices down the line. But my wild card picks of Child's Play and Angry Birds 2, they stopped me from even reaching the respectable 1 billion mark for my team. That just hurts my soul on a personal level.
On a personal level?
On a personal level, on a matter of respect, I can say, well, I did the best I could. That's not true. I definitely wish I would have picked Annabelle over Child's Play, which I was, debating at the time, but I was like, well, Child's Play looks a little more interesting to me than this Annabelle movie. Who doesn't want to see Chucky voiced by Mark Hamill? And it turns out the answer is everybody.
Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah. I don't know. Next year, I think on a wild card spot, I'll probably think about taking more of a chance on something a little different.
Yeah. But I will say Angry Birds too, right? I know we're picking this for a list, but let me just say, this was a company that made an app that became, viral sensation, obviously. That movie that made $35 million, where people were paying what? Like $2 for the app back in the day, or maybe $1.99. That to me is, in the bigger scheme of things, look at the origin of that thing. The fact that it made $35 million is probably actually pretty good, considering.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going out of business. I'm just saying for my list.
Personally, for your list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you.
I regret it. I regret, supporting the Angry Birds too, mentioning it, talking about it right now when I could be talking about something else.
Yeah. So that's the entirety of your regrets? I feel like,
That covers the major things, I think.
Yeah, okay. If you were to ask me, I'd say no regrets because I won.
Yeah, think when things work out.
Yeah, I don't have any regrets. I think if there is anything, it might be we didn't include Aladdin. I would have liked to have seen, because that may also have evened out the challenge a little bit more. And, I'm all up for a challenge.
Where do you think you would have picked Aladdin in the beginning of the summer?
Aladdin would have been my number one.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. But what would have happened? I don't know.
Well, then I definitely would have won if you would have done that.
Yeah, you probably would have won.
Because you would have picked Aladdin. I would have picked Toy Story 4. You would have picked Spider-Man. I would have picked The Lion King.
It would have been an interesting challenge at that point. Maybe knowing you, I wouldn't have picked Aladdin first, and maybe I'd have gotten it at a smaller spot, which would have been great, right?
That's true. That's true. You could have got it at a discounted rate.
Yeah.
Lower down the list.
Yeah. But I
could have got Hobbs and Shaw at like number 7.
You could have gotten Hobbs and Shaw. I would have given it to you as an 8th pick. And probably not argued with it. I'd be like, look, dude, you could just have that one as an extra.
You get an extra pick.
You get a bonus. And you'd have been like,
I'll give you 3 picks if you take Hobbs and Shaw.
I'm pretty sure I would have done that. So no offense to The Rock, man. I think his movies are good and stuff. And it looks like an enjoyable movie. I just would never see it in the box office, I don't think. Unless somebody said, hey, we have nothing else to do in our lives. What do you think? And I'd be like, I'm really knocking on that, but I'm sure it's a good movie. Did well.
But we'll never know. I love the draft.
Yeah.
A couple additional notes that I noticed. The interesting trends and similarities between our picks, our teams. Might think this is ridiculous, but I don't know. It's right there in the data, man. Numbers 3 and 4 on both our lists. Big movies that underperformed compared to expectations. So these are things to look out for next year. Just pointing it out. 3 and 4, Secret Life of Pets, Dark Phoenix on yours. 3 and 4 on mine, Godzilla and Men in Black International. Could just be a coincidence. I don't know. Number 5 on both lists were movies that overperformed based on expectations. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Rocketman. Number 6 on both lists, wild card pick that failed miserably. Yours being Shaft and mine being Child's Play. So next year's list, look out for number 6. Just some things to keep in the back of your head next year. I don't know. Just thought I'd throw those out there.
So I feel like this is the best format for our movie challenge. Really, that's just
I do. I can't wait till the next one. I wish we could do it right now.
Yeah, it's like a chess match, which is what I really like about it, because it's all dependent on each person's move, how you're going to then react to that. I really like that part of it.
Yeah, and it's much harder than you think it's going to be. That's what I remember about going into it. I had like a plan. I'm going to get this, this, and this, and then everything gets thrown off in like a minute.
Makes life interesting.
No, it was a lot of fun. Wrapping up, talking about the movie summer outside of the challenge. What did you think of it? Did you think it was a good movie summer?
I thought it was a summer that was better than most in recent memory. It didn't help my odds of seeing more movies, unfortunately. I saw Spider-Man, and that was it. But outside of that, yeah, I thought the movie summer was pretty decent. A little different than summers past, I feel like, which was good. Not as many, at least on our summer list, superhero movies, which was also a little bit refreshing, even though I love those type of movies.
Yeah, there seemed like there was more variety. All in all, I think it was too bad, despite all these bombs we had in the beginning of the summer, these kind of like bigger sci-fi movies that were supposed to be something more than they were. Actually, when you look at it as a whole, I didn't think it was too bad. I remember a couple summers ago when we were doing this and talking about what movies do you want to see, and I was like hard pressed to come up with like one or two. This summer I saw, 4 movies. Some of them were, family movies, things like Secret Life of Pets 2, which I would have never picked on my own, but just because of kids, you see it. Yeah. Saw that, saw Toy Story 4, saw Spider-Man, saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And they were all like, and Secret Life of Pets 2, all pretty good movies. My favorites were probably Toy Story 4, which had a voice of Keanu Reeves, which surprised me and made me pretty happy. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I mixed around in my brain for a long time afterward, even if I didn't love every part of it, but I, really enjoyed the experience of watching it. And even, Spider-Man, I had a really good time, like seeing it in the theater. Good summer movie experience, I thought. So the one movie I really wanted to see but didn't, that I probably cursed my list because a lot of people had the same thing maybe, was Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
So I failed The Rock. I'm the reason it didn't make $200 million, probably. I let The Rock down. I let Hobbs down. I let Shaw down.
Shame on you. Shame on you. You let The Rock down. I will say this. If you look under the surface a little bit, man, just another great example of how Disney is raking in money like crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, so they had Spider-Man, because it's Marvel, Lion King, Aladdin, that were not Toy Story, because they own Pixar.
All the top movies, yep.
I mean, every single one of them. And that's not even including some of the stuff, now that they own Fox and all those other Fox-related properties. So,
well, not only that, then you take into account, going back earlier in 2019, Endgame.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel. I think they have the top 5 or 6 movies of the year. Oh, they also have Frozen 2 still coming out this year.
Yeah. I also forgot they also had Dumbo this year, which did 350 something million. They also have Star Wars, dude, at the end of the year.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely going to be in the top 10. Holy crap. They might own the top 10 movies of the year.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a mammoth, man, at this point.
Because they're becoming so dominant, my only hope is the one thing that could be good for movies is that everybody's like, all right, Disney is just dominating these giant movies on a big scale. Maybe everybody else is just like, we'll make the Tarantino movies or the horror movies. We're going to do all these different things instead of trying to compete with them at those type of movies. But then we'll see more of that type of content, which people seem to want and are not getting enough of. They're sick of we don't want more Men in Black. You know what I mean? My hope is that the one thing that could be good for the industry is everybody else kind of appeal less to, trying to reach this broad audience, and we make these more interesting movies for this middle audience.
Yeah, that's what you hope. Obviously, that they won't.
It probably won't happen.
That they won't squeeze out everybody else too. That's the other thing. You don't want to see that.
I don't know. You're the Lion King. You should know this stuff.
Oh, come on. That wouldn't be fair. That's it for this episode of Movies and Marketing, everyone. Let's fade to black.
I'll be back.
He's not coming back.